Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Serapio. The Conservative leader is calling out the Trudeau government, criticizing them for failing to add the Houthis in Yemen to Canada's list of terrorist organizations. Now, that designation is more than just words. It would also give Canada more power in limiting the group's activities in this country, including the power to freeze bank accounts and the power to arrest and charge anyone in Canada who provides the group financial or material support. The United States declared the Houthis a global terror group in January, but Canada is still investigating the possibility, which Pierre Poilievre says is just one failure in a list of failures associated with the Trudeau Liberals.
He has broken our borders. He's allowed repeat violent criminals to run free in our streets. He's allowed ISIS terrorists to come in through our immigration system, even after they were videotaped, cutting up human bodies in the Middle East as part of the ISIS organization. They come into Canada and he gives them citizenship in this country where they plot to carry out new terrorist attacks. Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost, crime, chaos, and he's not worth the risk of terrorism.
Now, this call about Houthis follows up another call this week from Poilievre to also have a pro-Palestinian group called Samadin added to the terrorist list as well. With more on this, we're now joined by our strategist panel, Susan Smith, principal and co-founder with Blue Sky Strategy Group. Jordan Paquette is a senior consultant with the same company. And Nasha Brownridge is a senior consultant with Strategy Corps. Hello to the three of you.
Hello, Michael.
Hello. So, we just heard Pierre Poilievre, and obviously he's not holding back his words when he's criticizing the Trudeau track record on security. I'm wondering, is security an area in which Liberals are vulnerable, Susan?
That's a good question, but I think one of the things it's important to point out and take a step back with Mr. Poilievre is one of the things he's refusing to do is get a security clearance so that he can operate on the basis of fact. And he's out doing press conferences using extreme language without ever having the actual benefit of a proper security briefing and really committing to understanding what the process is. And I think he's vulnerable there. I think there are issues that regular, ordinary Canadians who don't understand the security process, but who are not Prime Minister or seeking to be Prime Minister, don't understand too. I think there's some face value things that the Liberals could probably communicate better on. But I think it's irresponsible of Mr. Poilievre to make grand, kind of really inflammatory, really divisive statements without, at the same time that he's refusing to get a security clearance that someone who wants to
look at the documents around foreign interference, to be clear,
but
not
on other things too,
but
right? But he would, in that case, he would understand what happens when you make these kinds of designations. I don't think anybody in Canada wants Canadian government to have a knee-jerk reaction exactly the same as the U.S. on things. We need to do our own homework, make our own determinations. I hope the government does those things in a responsible, reasonable way. I trust that that's what's taking place, and Mr. Poilievre is making politics out of something that's national security.
Jordan?
No, I mean, look, this is an extremely vulnerable issue for the Liberals, and it's an issue that the Conservatives have been strong on for a long time, including in government. There needs to be political leadership right now. We can't just look at the department and say, okay, no, we can't name certain groups as terrorist organizations because we have to wait for the bureaucracy to catch up. Violent crimes are up so much in this country right now since October 7th, and there's communities that are hurting in the Jewish community, as the Muslim community, lots of communities right now. So they're looking for political leadership and for strong words to be said about this. Liberal caucus members, Anthony Housefather, has been very forceful as well, pushing the government along on some of these issues. And so I think Poilievre's just really amplifying the voice of some of these communities that have felt like they're put down. I don't think it's a matter of just getting a security clearance from government to kind of talk about these behind closed doors. These are issues that Canadians are feeling everywhere and very strongly about, and they should be debated quite openly.
Nasha?
See, and I think when it comes to leadership, words are just words. The government does have to make an informed decision on these matters. National security and public safety are no joke. It's something that you have to take very cautiously and very carefully. So I do respect that the government is in a difficult position when it comes to these things. And I do think that Pierre Poilievre is playing games. He's been doing that a lot this session, wanting to call an election every other day. And now I think he's taking some of that rhetoric and moving it into a space where it doesn't belong.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm going to pick up a bit of what you said there because, you know, we've heard a few comments from Mr. Poilievre this week. Among them, beginning of the week, accusing the Foreign Affairs Minister of pandering to Hamas. He also said, in marking the anniversary of October 7th, that striking Iranian nuclear sites by Israel would be a blessing for the world. You know, I want to play in particular right now what we heard from Melanie Joly based on what was said to her about Hamas. Take a listen to the Foreign Affairs Minister.
You don't frickin' gaslight people. Not on a day that is so important for the country. And clearly that's what Pierre Poilievre was doing today. And clearly what he was saying, he was trying to play petty politics on the backs of victims. And so that's why not only should he apologize for what he did, but clearly the guy's unfit to become prime minister.
Okay, so that was Monday, the anniversary of October 7th. But it was reacting to this comment made by Pierre Poilievre. It makes me wonder, with all the criticisms hurled at today, are Liberals answering these criticisms effectively enough, Susan, to perhaps put at ease any doubts Canadians may have as a result of these types of criticisms?
What's the maddest I've ever seen Melanie Joly? She was clearly furious and genuinely furious. But Michael, you just read something really benignly, and just because you're neutral, but Pierre Poilievre called for attacks on nuclear facilities. If you're the leader of a country in the free world, do you want to be calling on things that start nuclear war? So these, or could start nuclear war. These kinds of flippant, I don't know if they're flippant, they're deliberately, the statements from Mr. Poilievre are dangerous. That's a dangerous statement. I don't care what your politics are. When you say go ahead and go after nuclear capabilities, that's a dangerous statement in an overheated environment. And Mr. Poilievre, in terms of his comments in the House, has been sanctioned by the Speaker of the House of Commons. There was a Liberal MP that said something about, I think, Conservative MPs, and he had the same sanctions put on, and the Conservatives went bananas against Mr. Poilievre, and he wasn't allowed to speak for a while. The same thing happened when Mr. Poilievre made the comments about Melanie Joly, and the Speaker said, you have to respect the decorum of the House. So the challenge for Mr. Poilievre is to respect the decorum of the House, to demonstrate himself as a leader, and on both those counts this week, I think he's failed.
Jordan?
I mean, the rhetoric in the House on some of these issues has been high for a long time. The Liberals, it wasn't that long ago, were accusing the Conservatives of being tied up with Vladimir Putin in that side of the war. So I mean, it can't just be one or the other. I mean, you know, we have to call it all out. So on a particular situation like this, I don't think Israel's going to go out and strike or risk a strike nuclear facilities because the leader of the opposition in Canada said so. These are debates that people are talking about right now. The Liberals are really backed into a corner on this issue because they've tried to play too many sides of it, and they've tried to make domestic politics and tried to solve domestic problems with it. So they're in a situation right now where some of these conversations are getting more heated and more difficult, and I think they've really walked themselves into it.
There's nothing Mr. Poilievre says that isn't about playing into domestic politics. The difference with the Liberals and Mr. Poilievre at the moment is Prime Minister Trudeau has a seat at the tables around the world. He's got a voice at the UN and other places, and he's not saying that he supports a strike on nuclear facilities. And Mr. Poilievre wants the job Mr. Trudeau has, and he's calling for that kind of thing, and I think that's irresponsible.
Okay. Nasha?
Pierre Poilievre has always been the attack dog in the House of Commons, but when it comes to issues like this, they are so sensitive, and not to mention there are innocent lives at play here. These conflicts have been going on long before Justin Trudeau was even Prime Minister, and to play, again, these political games and to be so almost deliberately, I mean, not caring about these situations. I'm sorry, but I'm at a loss for words. I think our Canadians deserve better, and our House of Commons deserves better.
Okay, quickly running out of time, so I'm going to ask for a quick 30-second answer from. Did you want to jump in for something?
Sure. I mean, look, there's communities out there that are.
Jordan was like,
no, trying to be polite, but look, there's communities hurting out there right now, and some of these have just become a matter of domestic politics for the Liberals. Agreed, yes, the Prime Minister does have a role on the world stage, but they also look to Canada for leadership on these issues, especially standing up for Israel, calling loudly for its right to exist, right to defend itself. But they've been trying to get in too deep on some of these motions that have been pushed by the more radical sides of the NDP. And it's just hurting them in the long run and just causing some of these divisions.
No.
Okay,
so
okay,
bad.
sorry. Okay, feel free to
your
react.
short
Okay,
answer.
Susan, Nasha, and then, then that's it.
I think there's no place to speak so casually about nuclear war or any type of war or arms, and I think that's what really leaves me lost for words, is how casually that was done.
And there's no question that the Government of Canada, led by the Liberals, but the Government of Canada always stands up for the right for Israel to exist.
Okay, well, that is our time. That went by much faster than I anticipated. But Jordan, it's all because of you. Susan, Jordan, Nasha, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike.